Football at 4 is powered by the Inside the Birds podcast. It's brought to you by Bet365. Whatever the sport, whatever the moment, it's never ordinary. At Bet365, Adam Caplan from the Inside the Birds podcast, which you can get on all podcasting platforms and on their YouTube channel. Just search Inside the Birds. Joins me here for a Tuesday edition of Football at 4 on the Sports Bash on 97.3 ESPN, ahead of the Eagles taking on the Green Bay Packers. Adam, they started in Brazil. They'll end up in Philly, and one of these teams is going home. We got plenty of conversation on this one. We're going to look at concerns and weaknesses and strengths, but, you know, the playoff rematches. Here's a stat for you, Adam Caplan. 4 times the team has met in the opening week and then again in the playoffs. All 4 times the team that lost the opener won the playoff game.
Look, you don't have any idea how many years ago these games were played. I'm just curious.
We'll try to find that for you.
Yeah,
yes, I do have that information for you.
Not that it matters, but yeah. It's a stat. I mean, it happened, so it's worth mentioning, but it doesn't really matter. It's all about matchups. And boy, that was a heck of a game, by the way. That week 1 game. I remember you and I, because that was a Friday game, so you and I were able to talk about it on Tuesday, heading into week 2. That had a playoff vibe. That was a phenomenal game, if you remember. It was up and back.
Yep.
Each team had a lead. Anyone could have won it. A lot's happened since then, and the coordinators today were actually talked about that because they were asked by the media. I think, and when you look at it from an Eagles standpoint, we learn a lot. We learn a lot. Though that was more of a passing game. Although in the Eagles, by the way, they lost the turnover battle. I think they lost 3-1, but they still won the game. We morphed into this running team, Mike, like no other. Like we didn't know it would be quite like this. I don't think anyone did. Interesting. We talked to Jeff Nixon, who was Saquon Barkley's running backs coach for the Giants for Patreon. We put a clip on YouTube so you could watch it. And Jeff worked under Andy Reid. Most people don't know that. I totally forgot. He worked under 4 years for Andy Reid, and you kind of know when you work for Andy Reid and the Eagles, you're going to pass the ball a lot, but really it's not been the case this season because a big reason is Barkley has been good. And, you know, in that first game, Mike, Barkley had that great catch on that wheel route, and I wonder if he'll do that again in this game.
Yeah, there's so much here, by the way. One of the other interesting numbers when you take a look at this game is Matt LaFleur. No coach has been better as an underdog. He is the only head coach in the Super Bowl era to have a winning outright record as an underdog. He is 19-16 when he is the underdog. So Matt LaFleur, the head coach, keep him in mind, has a pretty good record in these games. They're 25-10 against the spread, by the way, as the underdog in the Matt LaFleur era. But we're going to take a look at some of the concerns and weaknesses here, starting with Philadelphia's offense and obviously the lack of availability, not for Hurts to play in the games, but he hasn't practiced in about over 2 weeks now.
Yeah, actually almost 3 weeks. December 20th, that Friday was his last practice. He did not move enough in the protocol last week to even get a limited practice, and that was the only disappointment. I know he was in the building, as I was told, but he did not progress enough through the 5-step protocol. Mike, I heard you talk about the protocol, man. It's not easy to beat that protocol, man. It's just not, despite what people think. I've talked to the league, I don't know how many years about it. I've covered this concussion problems that the NFL's had over 20 years, Mike, and it's a brain injury. You got to be careful, but my understanding is Hurts is feeling better. The hope is tomorrow he's at least getting a limited practice, and then you really feel good about it. Now, if he's not practicing tomorrow, oh boy, that would not be good, but we'll see what happens tomorrow. But the one thing is, though, Mike, we forget, Hurts got hurt in the first quarter against Washington. The game before that was his last full game was against Pittsburgh. He was phenomenal against Pittsburgh, Mike. That was his best game of the year, particularly because of the type of throws that he had. Now, he played very well against Green Bay, but I just, you're talking about 2.5 weeks since he's practiced, and you cannot simulate game conditions in practice. You do the best that you can, but it's not the same thing. But it starts with practice, and that is a concern that he just has not practiced or played in a while.
Yeah, he hasn't practiced or played, as you mentioned, since 12/20. Played about 4 plays against the Commanders, and then he went out. That was Week 16. They have played 2 games, and now they're getting ready for a playoff game here. I think the one thing that a lot of people, I don't know, are talking about or forgetting about, but, man, Jake Elliott, he has missed 8 field goals this season. He missed another one on Sunday. This used to be an automatic, and now it changes the way they coach these games. I mean, you get to the 30-yard line, you used to say, okay, we have 3 points. That changes now.
It's funny you say that, Mike, because myself, Andrew Duchecko, and Jeff Mosher, I don't believe we've done this for the first time since we've had the company. We actually had a roundtable. We just taped it, so I'll just let people know, and we're going to put that up today. And it was on our list of concerns. It's absolutely, positively concerned. I know that Elliott's a pretty confident guy. We reported this at the time that Nick Sirianni was hired, that the coaching staff, the new special team staff, felt that it was the operation, the snap to the hold to the kick, the 3-step process was out of whack under Dave Phipp, the former special teams coach, and they corrected it. And Mike, show me a better kicker, 21 through 23. Obviously, Justin Tucker's right up there. He's not quite the same guy, but whether it's Justin Tucker or Butker or other kickers, you could say they're all good, but this guy was automatic Jake for a reason. I mean, and don't forget, 5 of those 8 misses, Mike, have come in the second half of the season. I'm not totally confident in him. And the other thing is, before we move on, Mike, let's go back to Jake Elliott being the kickoff guy. Braden Mann is not good enough, and I think we've kind of seen that.
Yeah, and, it's funny. I didn't realize when they made the switch to Mann, and then Mann was kicking, and then they switched back to Elliott. Then last week they went back to Mann, then they switched back to Elliott. We'll see. I mean, it's a
that was bad.
Yeah, it's a weird situation. But I definitely – do you think Sirianni has to make decisions differently because of Elliott?
It's a great question. There was one where I remember saying to Jeff Mosher, there's your answer. Nick clearly does not have the confidence in Jake Elliott. I forget what game it was where it was one, Mike, and you brought this up. In years past, there's no question they would have let him kick. I don't remember what the exact yardage was. It wasn't an easy kick. But this is one they were not even thinking about. They were going with Jake Elliott, and that was it. Where he didn't go that. I forget exactly what happened. Maybe they went for it, and also maybe they didn't go for the punt when they could have done it. But I am very interested to see what happens here. But also the conditions, Mike. Now I'm looking at the long-range forecast. It's going to be in the mid-30s right now. Now we know it could change. The wind, the length should be somewhere 12 to 15 miles an hour. You saw the kick last week that he missed. He didn't handle the wind well. Jake used to be great with wind, not so much anymore.
All right, let's look at Adam Caplan here. By the way, Football at 4 from the Inside the Birds podcast. How about some concerns and weaknesses on the defensive side of the ball? Obviously, this defense has really turned the corner. But that opening night, they did not have Cooper DeJean in that game. But that opening night, they did give up almost 30 points in that game. So where are some of the weaknesses and concerns against this team?
All right, a couple things, though. But I will tell you, Mike, remember what happened on the first couple series. There was the sudden change to the turnovers, and the defense held them to 2 field goals. That is a big reason why they won. I remember we do a Discord chat with our Patreon members during the games, and I remember saying, guys, you should feel really happy that your Eagles are only down 6-0 after a quarter. They should be down 14-0, and the defense held them in there. And that the defense, now, I know they had problems with the run game. This Emmanuel Wilson came off the bench. Remember, most people are like, wait, who is Emmanuel Wilson? Well, he had 4 for 46, including that 18-yarder. Josh Jacobs grinded out some carries. But in the end, Mike, and it's typical Fangio, when they had to hold the defense down, the opposite offense down, they did a great job, and they were able to come out with a win in a playoff atmosphere in Brazil. That was a great job by their defense. Now, the run defense, Mike, as you know, spotty at times this season, but in the second half, more often than not, they've corrected the problem. You have to feel good about that. It's the pass rush, Mike. They had about almost 2 months where they had the stat was, and I don't have it in front of me, up till about 3 weeks ago. It was after week 6, and almost 2 months, they had the NFL's best pass rush. But lately, Mike, it's not as good. I don't know if they're getting tired. The hope is that with them taking the week off last week, other than Bryce Huff and Jordan Davis, which is what we expected those guys would play, the key starters were not going to play in that game, like Josh Sweat, like Nolan Smith, who's a starter now. Let's hope that getting that week off gets them a little bit more spirit and more energy.
Yeah, and, you take a look at one of the strengths of Green Bay was supposedly their wide receiver depth. They lost Christian Watson in the Week 18 finale. He has an ACL. He will not play. He did score a touchdown in that first game in Brazil. But, you got the Eagles secondary, Darius Slay, versus a very Quinyon Mitchell, by the way, and Cooper DeJean did not play in that first game against this deep group of wide receivers for Green Bay.
It is, and even without him, the guy that, we'll talk more about this Friday, Mike, but watch Dontavian Wicks, who's a second-year receiver out of University of Virginia. He could run. He's not Christian Watson in terms of a deep threat, but the guy could run. You Bo Melton, who everybody knows, or hopefully in your area, Mike, from Rutgers, who can play a little bit. He's more of a slot receiver. Jane Reed, who did score that long run, that catch and run for, 70 yards in week 1? Yeah, it was 70 yards. I'm correct, for 138. But he's not explosive like Watson. They're going to miss that. They got Watson scored in the red zone against the Eagles, but he is a shot play guy. They're not going to have him. That really hurts them now. But the guy you go after is Darius Slay. He is the NFL's oldest corner. He just turned 34 on January 1st. He's clearly not the same player, but he could still play. When they throw it, they're going to go after Slay. There's no question about it. But the thing is, Mike, and we saw this with the Lions when they beat the Vikings on Sunday night. The Lions knew coming into the game that they could not handle Justin Jefferson if they can't get to the passer. So they brought the house. They were relentless against Sam Darnold. Darnold had a terrible game. I'm not saying here the Eagles don't blitz much. They're under 20%, Mike, for the season. That's crazy. But they're going to have to. To me, if I'm Matt LaFleur, I'm going after Darius Slay. That's the guy you got to go after.
All right, Adam Caplan, let's look at some of the strengths here for Philadelphia as they get ready for this game. What are some of the things that you look at as they enter this game? When they went down to Tampa last year and got the doors blown off of them in a playoff game here. A lot of these guys are a part of that Super Bowl team, so they have a little Jekyll and Hyde in them.
Right, but Mike, let's understand, okay? The defensive staff is almost completely different. And the buy-in that the players had pretty much immediately with Vic Fangio. It's kind of interesting where Fangio, a bunch of the veteran players couldn't stand him. They wanted him out, and Mike McDaniel responded to that, and the Eagles were happy to get Vic. Vic knows the team. He's known Howie Roseman for a number of years, and this is a guy that Nick Sirianni really wanted. But when you really look at it, Mike, they got a great combination for the first time in I don't know how long of youth. You mentioned Cooper DeJean, Quinyon Mitchell, and then you've got Milton Williams, who's in the final year of his rookie deal, who's a young guy. But you also have a lot of guys returning from the Super Bowl team. Hurts, A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, most of the offensive line, Goddard, Sweat, Williams, Slay. Don't forget, Gardner Johnson was here 2 years ago. Had a great season before he got hurt. Reed Blankenship, who's now a full-time starter. You look at their talent offense at running back, at wide receiver. Goddard's back, by the way. He looked great. Look, we were not in favor for them playing him to take that risk because they rested just about everybody else, but he looked great. Their line, their depth on the offensive line is terrific. You get Goddard, Mike. Let's not just talk about the pass game, Mike. The big deal is in the run game. Remember, C.J. Uzomah is done. He's on injury reserve with a serious abdomen injury. Getting Goddard back not only in the pass game but for the run game is massive.
No doubt about it. Yeah, Goddard, by the way, they featured him a lot in that game on Sunday. It was like, hey, let's feed him the ball, right? Yeah. It was pretty evident that they wanted to get him kind of get some catches, get some hits, great. Right? Get some hits on. Hey, I love I was laughing. I said they run the same play about 15 times, that little rollout to the tight end. But that's a play that I think they should. I don't know that JalenHurts, if that's a strength of his or not, but I'd like to see them add that play a little bit. You had one-on-one Goddard with a smaller, nickel guy. It looked like a lot, and man, they were just taking advantage all day there.
Mike, it's interesting. So in training camp, and Andrew DeCecco and I were talking about this in this preview show, this roundtable we did today. One of the things and one of the concerns that personnel people had around the National Football League about McKee was his lack of mobility. He did not move well in 23 in training camp. His training camp was not very good in 23. It was the preseason that got him on the team. His preseason was phenomenal. His preseason this year was okay. He didn't play well against the Vikings. He had 2 turnovers. But his training camp at times was tremendous. And the thing that shocked me was how well he moved. I'm like, where did this come from? So this manifested it. You just brought it up, Mike. On the move, he threw the ball well. Did you notice how well he moved under pressure in the first half? He didn't play well in the second half as well as he did in the first half. But first half of the Giants game, he was phenomenal. With all these backups, And let me put it to this way. The Giants starters who were healthy all played. They were without a number of players who were hurt on injury reserve, but they had plenty of starters in there. He just got away from the rush, and their line did a good job. I was pleasantly surprised. We know in limited time, obviously McKee had that great run against Dallas, but his first ever full-time start in a regular season, Mike, that was a great start. I thought Kellen Moore managed him pretty well.
Yeah, I agree. I thought McKee did a really good job of just stepping up, eluding. He never looked like pressured. I mean, he just seemed very calm and just delivered the ball most of the time. That one drive, he had the two big passes to Goddard, 15 yards, 17 yards, then the touchdown to Aniyah Smith. That was a really good drive. You're right. In the second half, it seemed that the Giants confused them a little bit more, but they did get Goddard involved. What about the defense, some strengths of the defense in this game, some of the things that, if you're entering and you're Philly, you really like about your defense in this matchup?
All right, so for the Packers, it stops and ends with the run game. They are a balanced team. I don't agree with their approach. I know they have Josh Jacobs, but they're really good at tight end and really good at receiver. Their offensive line is not very talented, but they play better than their talent would suggest. They're really well coached. They want to be they're what we call a balanced 12 personnel, 11 personnel team. It starts with Josh Jacobs. That what's coming. You got to be able to stop it. He's a stop-and-start vision runner. He sets up his blocks well. He's versatile in the pass game. Good football player. It did end well with him with the Raiders, but he's revived his career. He's had a really good season. The run game, and it starts with him. That's the foundation of their offense. Jordan Love can sling it. He didn't play well before he got hurt against the Eagles in Game 1. But lately, he's not turning the ball over like he did earlier in the season. Second half of the season, he really isn't turning it over very much. But you're going to see, the good thing about the Eagles is, with Isaiah Rodgers, when Green Bay goes 11 personnel, 3 receivers, 1 back, 1 tight end, the Eagles can match up against them. The Eagles are deep at safety. They're deep enough at corner. So unlike last year, Mike, they can match up to everybody. The run D is really improved. Sometimes, there are some times earlier in the season you scratch your head a little bit, but I would say, Mike, it all started in Week 3 at New Orleans, when Vic Fangio put in a front that New Orleans didn't look at, they didn't see, by dropping Zach Bond as the 5th defender in the box, that they cut off the zone, the outside zone run or the stretch run. They cut it off. And by the way, they run a zone scheme, Green Bay. The Eagles know what they're going to get. There's no mystery here. The Eagles could stop them. And also like Vic's adaptable front. He will adapt his front, whether he runs a 5-2, 4-2-5. He's done a little bit of a 6-man front. He'll do whatever it takes, and that's just great coaching. It's why, and I vote for Pro Football Writers Association very soon. I'm probably going to vote for Fangio Assistant Coach of the Year. I don't know that anyone's done a better job as an assistant coach.
All right, real quick, we're talking with Adam Caplan here. I did find those other games. The Eagles beat the Packers 34-29 in Week 1. 4 times it has happened in the last 20 years. They met the first game in the season opener. The second time, the team that lost won. It actually happened in 2010, Eagles-Packers. The Eagles beat the Packers in the opener, and then the Packers won the playoff game. It happened in 2013, Packers-Niners. It happened in 2015, Texans-Chiefs, and 2022, Buccaneers-Cowboys, where the Bucs won the opener and the Cowboys won the playoff game.
Okay, but look, it's at least it's happened before. But the bottom line is that a lot has changed here. We didn't really quite know after Week 1 what the Eagles were, whether they were more of a run team or not, because they passed the ball. It was I got to tell you, that was one of the best regular season first games of the season openers I've seen. Who knew? Now, other than the slipping, let's not forget about that. The grass was wet, and that was not good. But we'll talk more about this Friday, Mike. But the loss of Christian Watson is massive for them because.
And don't forget, Jair Alexander's out too.
But he's been out for 6 out of 8 weeks, Mike. It's not something new for them. It's big. I mean,
he was in the first game.
Yes, but they play without him 6 out of the last 8 weeks, so it's nothing new for them. But the big one is Christian Watson. Now, they're not good at corner, other than Keyshawn Nixon, who's a good player. He's actually improved. He's their special teams returner, but he's also a good outside corner. He can play both. But they're not deep at corner, and that's an area I'm so fascinated. How do the Eagles come out here, Mike? Do they come out throwing it, running it, balance? We'll see. But we know it. Barkley's going to get the ball out. That's definitely going to happen.
132 yards from scrimmage in the first game, 3 touchdowns for Saquon Barkley, and we'll see what he does for an encore. He has killed the Packers in his career against Green Bay. He has gone over 100 scrimmage yards in 4 straight games against Green Bay, has Saquon Barkley. He'll look to make it 5 when he takes on the Packers this Sunday right here on 97.3 ESPN. Another Football at 4 with Adam Caplan in the books. Thank you, Adam.
Thank you.